Hi, welcome back to the 7th chapter of the book review. This chapter was by far the most important one, in my opinion, so far. In this chapter, I want to talk about the law of the octave, which explains, first of all, our life's purpose, and second, why we set out to do one thing and end up doing a completely different thing. And the second topic I want to talk about is remembering yourself, which will tell you what I consider as being enlightened. So when the enlightened masters speak about enlightenment, I think they are referring to this, to exactly this, what I'm going to talk about. So let's start with remembering yourself, enlightenment. I was surprised that they mentioned this in this kind of book, which is pertaining to a left-hand path system. I would not have expected to read about enlightenment in this book, but I was pleasantly surprised. So what do they refer to as remembering yourself? It means while we are aware of anything, of our surroundings, let's say, usually we are at the same time not aware of ourselves. We forget that we are aware of our surroundings. We forget that we walk, we forget that we talk, we forget that we forget ourselves in the things we are doing. So remembering yourself means to be aware of yourself while you are doing things, thinking, speaking, listening, reading, walking, anything. But you might ask, what do I mean with myself? Well, it's this feeling, this sense of I exist, which is deep inside your being, which you can be aware of, but usually are not. And if you don't know what I mean, listen to Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, and you will get a sense of what I'm referring to. If you don't understand it, read first his books and you will understand what I mean. Alright, so that's what I believe they meant in this book. So what I'm reviewing, what they meant with remembering yourself. And what is enlightenment? How is enlightenment defined? If you are continuously and uninterruptedly remembering yourself, you are said to be enlightened. And the enlightened masters, they possess this skill of being able to continuously remembering themselves. But why should you even care, you might ask? Why is it important? it is important, because if you don't remember yourself, you're just a machine, an autonomously acting machine which has no free will at all and just reacts to external stimuli. And you want to be one of them? I don't want to. But that's not all. Usually with remembering oneself, when remembering oneself, one becomes more focused, more effective. The brain works better. You feel better. You perceive more clearly. You have a state of tranquility and in the zone feeling. You have a pleasant sensation arising from inside your being. So, do I need to continue? The benefits are just endless. There's really nothing better than this. There's really nothing better than this, believe me. So, that should be our goal, our number one goal. Always remembering ourselves, always, and become enlightened. So, that was the first part, the first topic, and this topic alone, to read it just in one chapter, but just as a part, it's not even the whole chapter, is incomprehensibly, it's remarkable that you have so much relevant concepts, that you have such groundbreaking wisdom packed in this book, in just one chapter, not even one chapter, it's just half of the chapter, and it went on for the previous 6 chapters. It's just unbelievable. Every chapter of this book could be a 10 book, could be 10 books on their own. So important is the wisdom in here. This is just scratching the surface, really. This is wow, I'm just blown away by this. I hope you also I hope you understand the importance of what I'm conveying here. I really hope you do. Alright, with that being said, we now come to the second topic, and this one just blew me away. It was groundbreaking, earth-shattering, and it was the law of the octave. And it explains not only the purpose of human existence on earth. I mean, you have asked yourself, probably like me, the whole life, what's our purpose? What are we here for? And now they just tell me in half of a chapter, like it's nothing. This is how good this book is. In just half a chapter they tell me the purpose of human existence. Can you believe that? Alright. But it doesn't stop here. It explains so many phenomena in the world. For example, why we set out to do one thing but end up doing a different thing. and it explains progress and advancement of all development of all phenomena in the universe. So the law of the octave. So as you know, an octave consists of, a full octave consists of 8 tones, and they are referred to now as Do, Re, Mi, Fa, So, La, Si, and Do. So we begin with Do, and the end of the octave, the next Do, is also the beginning of the next octave. And between the first Do and the next Do, we double the frequency, because every of those 7 notes in the octave vibrate at a certain frequency. But now comes the most important aspect of this. The intervals, the gaps between the frequencies, they are not uniformly distributed. They are unevenly distributed. And we have 3 different lengths. Okay, we have an 9/8 increase, a 10/9 increase, and a 16th, 15th increase in vibration. So those 3. And when you look at the piano keyboard, you see there's also the octave, and you see in one octave you have, for every octave you have only 5 semitones. So 2 semitones are left out. Why are 2 semitones left out? So because between the notes Mi and Fa and Si and Do, we have the shortest length, the least gap between frequencies. That's why they left out the semitones. So you don't have black keys here for between the white keys on a piano keyboard. So, but why is this important? Why is this important? It's important because exactly at these 2 intervals between the notes Mi, Fa, and Si, Do, the octave changes direction if it proceeds normally. And that is why, if we want to stay on the same direction, if we want to stay on the path, we need additional shocks, additional impulse from outside to compensate for the decrease, for the retardation in frequency between those 2 notes. Alright, so everything, any development in life follows the rule of the law of the octave. That means inevitably at some points there is a drop in frequency which will lead to a change in direction if it follows naturally. But, and this explains why we set out to do one thing and we end up doing completely different thing. For example, on my journey, I set out to do, my first goal was to reach enlightenment. And then it has warped into understanding everything. And on the smaller scale, I said, when starting this YouTube channel, I set out with the intention of using the videos as a tool to understand the concepts I read in the books better, to assimilate them more easily. And then it didn't take long. My intention changed naturally to producing quality content for the viewers, such that I can get more views. So in a short time my intention changed completely, but now I've observed it and I could get back on track, which is focusing on the content, learning the content, and not focusing on video quality. Alright. And now, because I promised you in the beginning, I will tell you the purpose of human existence. And it has also to do with this law, because we already talked about the ray of creation. That is, we have the 8 levels, from the absolute to all worlds, to all suns, to the sun, so 4, to all planets of a solar system, level 5, to our planet, level 6, to our moon, level 7, and then nothing, which again is the absolute, which is the 8th level and the first again. So here we have the octave, a full octave. So I said that drop in vibration occur between Mi, Fa and Si, Do. But we have to know that the ray of creation is an descending octave. I mean, this I didn't even mention, that there are ascending and descending octaves, and so many other things. For example, that a octave has this change in direction, and if left unattended, it will make a full circle, and it will always go in a circle. That is, for example, why we don't have a visible improvement. That's why it can happen that for years we don't really develop anything, because we always go in a circle, because we leave the law of the octave develop by itself without additional shocks. Therefore we go in circles. But there are so many things about this which I didn't even mention. For example, also that every note of the octave is a full octave on another level, and there are lateral octaves which can start intersected, but I can't explain all of this now. If you want to know it in more detail, then you have to read the book, of course. But so we were at the what's human purpose, and therefore I need to introduce the ray of creation. It's a descending octave. So we don't go Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, Do. We go Do, Si, La, So, Fa, Mi, Re, Do. So we go backwards. Okay? So the first drop in vibration occurs then between Do and Si, between the absolute and all worlds, but this can be evened out, flattened out by the absolute itself, by the will of the absolute. But the second drop occurs between Mi and Fa, so Fa and Mi backwards, and Mi is the Earth and Fa is all planets. And how is this drop in vibration now evened out? So there needs to be an additional impulse, and this additional impulse is organic life on Earth, also the humanity. So if we have wars or emotions or anything, this is actually the required additional shock for the ray of creation to follow a straight line and not retard backwards and go in circles. So we are the additional impulse which is required. So that is the purpose of human existence. That so now we know why we are here on Earth. Now we know why we are here on Earth. I mean, we could of course say this is just another theory, but for me this sounds so true. It is by far the most likely theory, the most probable one which I have heard of. That we are the additional impulse which is required for the ray of creation to even out the drop of vibrations between the notes mi and fa. So yeah, but now there's one important question left. How do we, for ourselves in our own development, can create these additional shocks, the required impulses to correct the octave and not let it change its direction? And unfortunately, the teacher in the book says that it's only possible by joining an esoteric school which can teach this, because on your own it's too difficult. You can't learn it on your own. But I don't believe that. I will try to figure it out myself. So I know what my purpose is, my goal is, my initial direction. It's to reach enlightenment. That hasn't changed since about 8 years. No, yes, no, let's say 6 years. That hasn't. So initially I set out to reach enlightenment 6 years ago, and it wasn't my only goal in life. At some points it was more important to me, at some points it was less important to me. I didn't lose it out of sight completely, and I never will. I can say that because it has hit me so hard that I will never forget. I will never forget this. It has hit me so hard already that I will never forget this and never lose sight of this goal. The only thing which can happen is that I deviate from it by going in circles, but I then come back to it again. But wait, that's exactly what the law of octave is telling. I set out to reach enlightenment, then I deviate slightly. For example, I deviate to understand everything, then I deviate even more, for example, to producing quality videos. Then I deviate more and more, and finally I will go back again to reach enlightenment, to the path of reaching enlightenment. But I will start where I left off, where I left the path, so I would have made no progress. And this already happened 6 years now. Wow. So, alright, so I do think they have a point with this law of octaves going in full circles. And I will really have to think about that. But in the meantime, I will just focus on remembering myself, so that's also the homework for you. If you don't know what is meant by remembering yourself, read Eckhart Tolle's books, The Power of Now, and Ramana Maharschi. Ramana Maharschi's teachings, Who Am I? I think he even has a book which is called that way, Who Am I? Yeah, read those two. So read those two authors. I mean, Eckhart Tolle is a good introductory read to get acquainted with the matter, but I think Ramana Maharshi is much more advanced, so I don't know if you will get Ramana Maharshi right in the beginning, but try out what resonates with you. But start with Eckhart Tolle. Alright, and the homework is we try every moment in our lives, every second, every minute, to remember ourselves. Alright, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, at least a bit, because it's not focused on video quality as you've heard, but maybe you enjoyed it nonetheless. And see you next time. Bye.